Welcome everyone to the 3-day International Virtual Workshop on Thesis Writing and Publication, jointly organized by Lavender Literary Club India, Cat Common Trust, and Malaysian Industrial Relations and Human Resource Association, Malaysia. Today is the second day. Today we have three sessions. The first session, our speaker is Dr. Madhusudan Rao. He's an associate professor,
Sir, we are not
PG
getting any
English.
audible.
Hello.
Mr. Jinu,
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Hello, sir. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you're audible, clear now, voice.
Yeah. Okay. And the first session, our speaker is Dr. Madhusudan Rao. He's a PG Associate Professor, PG English, Program Coordinator, Placement Training, and Academic English Process for BCA and MCA in KL, deemed to the University, Guntur, Andhra Pradesh, India. He has published a book titled The Problems and Perspectives of TOEFL IBT Reading Comprehension, National Press Association, November 2016. Yes, he has published many papers in the national journals and actors and resource persons. He's a reviewer of Sage Open and UGC. He has membership of English Language Teaching Association of India, Research India Foundation, ICSSR Social Scientist, Asian Association for Language Assessment, Association for Computer Linguistics. His special skills: flair for research and writing, IELTS and TOEFL trainer, soft skills trainer, content developer, course designing. His interest on course collection, walking, traveling. We are very glad to have you, sir. We hand over the session to you. This session is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I hope I am audible. Am I?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Thank you
Yes,
so
sir.
much. Right. Before I begin my session, I would like to share a Google form, which won't take not more than 2 to 3 minutes. So that gives me an idea about what is your expectations and what is your knowledge on the topic that I'm going to discuss on. And by the time you finish answering this one, you'll come to know what the topic is going to be today. And I think, sir, is it possible that I can send a message?
Yes, sir.
I think the option is not available for me to leave a message. Yeah, thank you. I think the link is visible to everyone. I just open this link for 5 minutes so that you and I, both of you, can understand what is the topic on discussion today, and I can understand what's your knowledge on it. Dear participants, it won't take more than 2 to 3 minutes. The link is open. I hope the form is also visible to you.
Hello, sir.
Yeah,
What is the meaning? Last question I couldn't understand, sir.
just a minute.
Though I submitted that, my
Okay,
form,
okay,
but
okay.
I did not understand that last question.
Just a minute. Thank you so much, ma'am. Just check it again.
Okay. This is a repetition. 3 times the question has been repeated.
Certainly not.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay.
There
Sir.
there is a little difference.
Okay.
Sir, how am I supposed to respond?
Just there is a link available in the chart. Please click on it and fill the form, ma'am. That's all. The link will be disabled within 2 minutes.
The link is not available to me. I'm not able to see the link.
Really? Give me a minute. Begin now. I shared the link again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Fine then. Good evening, everyone. I think by this time, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Thank you. Thank you. So, by this time, those who have responded to the form, you might have understood this session is going to focus on. So the first question is, do you have knowledge on research gap? And 45% people say that they possess it. Very good. Right. I'm just focusing on the major one, the major part of the participants. Knowledge on research questions, okay, 84%. Writing objectives, 60%. Wonderful. Then problem statement, 50% say no idea. Okay. Then I know there is a difference between relation between research gap and objectives. So 44% say yes to it. Okay. Now there is a relation between research gap and objectives. 44% say yes to it. And there is a relationship between the objectives and research questions. And almost 33% say yes to it. Right. So I think 50% of my job is going to be easy today based on the knowledge you possess on what's going to be discussed. Right. Give me a minute. Is the presentation visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to focus on 4 things today. One, purpose of the study. Second one, research gap. Third one, research objectives. And fourth one, writing research questions. So these are the 4 areas where by the end of this session, you will enrich your knowledge on it if you possess knowledge on this area as per the Google form. And if you are new to these aspects, then at least you will be able to understand what are these and how to look at in future. So initially, now, what is research gap? Can anyone of you answer this question? Anybody? What is research gap?
Where research can be done, or
Okay, absolutely. Now, how
So
to, yeah, please,
the area which is not explored.
exactly. Now, this is the right point, the area which has not been explored, and how to identify this area. This is what is the purpose of literature review. And most of the researchers today, they don't know the purpose of research review. And I don't mean to say that everybody, most of the researchers are the PhD scholars, right? The scholars need to focus on literature review first, because this is what, or this is where you come to know the area that you want to, the gap that is existing, and how you need to work upon it. So conducting an exhaustive literature review is your first step, because based on the knowledge I have it, most of the scholars, what they're trying to do today is immediately the moment they got registered for PhD, they are jumping towards collecting the data. And once data is collected, then they come to know from somebody that there should be a literature review on it, then they get back. So this is going to be a reverse engineering. Now, instead, I request all the scholars, and this is my sincere advice to all the scholars, first primarily focus on your literature review. That can make you understand what the research has been done on the area that you would like to focus upon, and what are the gaps existing on it. As you search for general articles. Now, the second important point here is never look at theses. Always focus on research articles or research papers, and my recommendation is go for international journals like Elsevier, right, or else Web of Science. These are authentic journals where you can find the correct source and correct gap. And the rest of the articles, I don't mean to say that I'm not going to belittle all the journals, but like UGC career journals. So UGC career journals and UGC Care B, both are list 1, list A, and list B. List B is nothing but these journals, Web of Science and Scopus. So when you focus on Care A and Care B journals, you will understand the quality. At the same time, you'll come to know the gaps existing on the areas that you would like to work it up on. So the difference between reading a thesis and reading a research article, it's like a thesis on your topic. Somebody may produce, one copy may be produced, or 2 copies may be produced in a year. Whereas on the same topic, there would be a chance that at least 5 to 6 research papers will come out in a year on the same topic. Now, that can let you know the area very perfectly, and that can let you know where to focus upon. That's why I recommend scholars to read good number of research articles instead of theses. You'll need to read critically across the breadth of the literature to identify these gaps. And there you come across a lot of gaps. Supposing you read a research article, towards the end of it, in recommendations, in every paper you come across not less than 2 recommendations. And these recommendations are going to be, or else you can call these recommendations as feature scope. So you can, supposing you read 10 research papers, you come across almost 20 gaps. Now, it would be easier to you to pick up one out of them, and you can make it your study. So the recommendation for, yeah. Do you have any question? Fine. So your goal should be to find a space or opening for contributing new research. Now, this is even today, UGC is recommending, or UGC is very keenly observing what contribution is going to bring your thesis to the society. So unless you are cautious and careful about mentioning this point, how What is your contribution through your research? Now, to let or to put your contribution in your thesis, the third point, your goal should be to find a space or opening for contributing new research, identified, and that could be identified based on the works that have been done so far on your particular area. The first step is gathering a broad range of research articles on your topic. Then you need to keep on narrowing it down. By the end of this session, I'll let you know how to narrow it down. Then you may want to look for research that approaches the topic from a variety of methods. Now there are three methods: qualitative approach, quantitative approach, and mixed methods approach. My recommendation to the scholars is always go ahead with qualitative approach or quantitative approach. And my strong recommendation is leave mixed methods approach. Or else, if you want to seriously pursue your research on mixed methods approach, then read about it and don't have an assumption that taking questions, giving a list of questionnaire containing 20 statements or 30 statements and interviewing some participants is nothing but mixed methods approach. That's an assumption. Read cautiously about what is qualitative research and what is quantitative research, and you should not determine that you want to focus on mixed methods research. Your research questions, your objectives, they need to let you do, or they need to make you choose out of these three methods. Dear participants, I repeat my point again. You should not choose the method out of your interest. Your research should opt it. Your research should demand it. And unless your research demands, you cannot go for any kind of method at all. If your research demands qualitative, go for it. But don't go for mixed methods, and vice versa. I changed the slide. I think it's visible to you. Does it?
Sir. Yeah. It is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So focus your research area. Do some exploratory research. Read ebooks. Ask your advisors and other faculty. The primary job to be done is the moment you identify a general area or a broad area, read books. If library is not available to you, go for an ebook. Read ebook. Then broadly, let's say I belong to English language domain. So what I recommend to my scholars is first read books on linguistics or read books on applied linguistics. Then we can think about what is the area to be chosen on. So the first thing to be done is go for ebooks. Then the second point, read, and then read what? Research articles. The more you read research articles, participants, research article does not take more than 2 to 3 days time. Despite your busy schedule, if you focus on, if you are able to spend 2 to 3 hours in a week, you can complete one research article, along with taking down the notes too. The more you read, the more knowledge you gain on your research area, and the more chances are there that you can narrow down your topic. So primary focus on ebooks, secondary focus on research articles, then map out the literature. Keep track of what the others told and the questions that occur to you. The moment you read research articles, the areas that you focus on in any one of the research papers, despite you belong to whatever domain it might be. The first point to be focused upon is what are the objectives? What are the aims in this research paper? Second one, how these objectives are linked to research questions. Third one, what is the method applied to address these research questions? Then, are there any participants? Finally, what is the result and what are the recommendations? I repeat, the areas that you need to focus on in a research paper are objectives, aims. What are the objectives in this research paper? Second one, what are the research questions? Third one, what are the methods or what is the method used by the author? Are there any participants? And how is analysis done? What is the result of it? And in conclusion, you'll come across the limitations of the study and the recommendations of the study. Now, the recommendations of the study is going to be a research gap for you. Based on the recommendations that are given in a research paper, if you pick up those recommendations and you start working on those areas, that's going to be a research gap. So let's find out what are the types of research gaps. Evidence-based, knowledge-based, practical knowledge-based, methodology gap, empirical gap, theoretical gap, population gap. Now, it's like a researcher focused on theoretical part, he or she does not focus on evidence at all. Somebody focused on theory, but not on practical knowledge of it. Somebody focused on practical knowledge of it, but did not focus on experimental way of doing the research. Somebody surveyed it, but there is no methodology in it. And somebody focused on bringing out the theoretical part of it, but there are no participants at all. Now, the moment you looked at the recommendations in research papers, identify whether the research paper, what is the limitation of the research paper? Where lies the gap in the research paper? Does the gap exist in methodology or empirical study or theoretical study? For that matter, if you focus on reading research papers of UGC CARE A or CARE B, then there is 100% that there won't, you may not find a theoretical gap or you don't find a methodology gap at all. These two will exist in any one of the research papers that are published in UGC CARE A or CARE B. Then the choice left for you is there could be a chance of population gap or evidence gap or knowledge gap or practical knowledge or empirical gap. So these are the areas that you can explore on based on the research paper you read and based on the topic you opted for your research. Now, before I move on to research objectives, do you have any questions on research gaps? I would like to address them if you have any questions, or else I'll move to research objectives. Participants, do you have any questions on research gaps?
No, sir. Please do continue.
Right, fine. So let me move on to the next one. So research objectives. Now, unless you explore your research gaps, you cannot design or you cannot write your research objectives at all. Research objectives can be perfectly written only when you know the gap. That means objectives are based on gaps. There is a link. So how to write it? Writing your research objectives clearly helps you to define the focus of your study. Objective is the aim. So you need to let your readers know what is the aim of your study. Now, aim of the study can be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, right? Now, how to write your objective? This is an interesting part. If you are aware of Bloom's taxonomy, there are 6 levels in Bloom's taxonomy. The first one is remembering, second one understanding, third one applying, fourth one analyzing, fifth one synthesizing, and sixth one creating. I repeat, remembering, understanding, applying, then analyzing, synthesizing, and creating. Now, when you write your research objectives, there are action verbs related to all these 6 levels. At remembering level, you need to use specific action verbs. Understanding level, applying level, and analysis level. Now, if it is experimental based, either you will be going for applying level or you will be going for analysis level. So the moment you focus on applying level or analysis level, pick up the action verbs that are related to these, like to give an example, to apply the existing knowledge of students and to discover the errors that they commit in writing tenses. I repeat again, I'm just giving an example for you. to apply to apply the existing knowledge of students on tenses and to discover the types of errors they commit in tenses while writing. Now, this is an objective. Now, when I write this objective, it means that there is no research work done on this area. What is that area? Tenses. This is a broad area. Tenses is the broad area. Now, looking back, what I mean here is there is nobody who identified errors among students related to tenses. Now, upon this supposition, I need to see. I'm just giving an example. Whereas I found this gap in the recommendations. Now I have taken up the point as an objective. Now I wrote an objective based on it to apply the existing knowledge and to discover the types of errors. When I say to discover the types of errors, it means nobody has discovered the types of errors. Next important point here. I mentioned students. Who are they? Are they at primary level, or high school level, or intermediate level, or advanced level? Broadly, at beginner level, or intermediate level, or advanced level. Now, if I'm able to describe even this point, my objective contains clarity. Clearly identify variables to be measured. Once you identify it, then you need to clearly identify variables. Now, who are your participants? What is your questionnaire? These are the variables that are necessary for you. Identified. And this identification, once you are able to identify them, then your methodology could be easy. Indicate the various steps to be involved. So step one. Step one is once you write your objective, then you'll be focusing on your research questions. And based on the research questions, you choose the methodology. And based on the methodology, you'll check for the participants and their level. Then what are the research tools to be used? And finally, you'll go to analysis. Establish the limits of the study. So unless, give me a second. So unless you have clarity on your objectives, you cannot identify the limitations of your study. Then avoid collection of any data that is not strictly necessary. Participants, especially scholars, those who are at the stage of methodology or collecting a data or writing questionnaires, be cautious. At times you will be tempted to, even instead of saying tempted, fascinated. You will be fascinated to include certain statements or points which are not necessary, because you might have been doing research on this and you love to add these points. Identify the areas that you are fascinated and try to exclude them. Include the points that are necessary. Data that is not necessary, you need to strictly avoid it, because if you include it and it is untouched, the adjudicator is going to focus on that area. Then you'll have a sorry face. Now, objectives can be general or specific. Now, what are the objectives to be general and specific will be looked upon. General objective for your study states what you expect to achieve in general terms. Now, general objective is to identify the errors related to tenses. This is general. Now, specific objectives break down the general objective into smaller, logical, connected parts that systematically address various aspects of the problem. Now, general objective is to identify tenses. Now, specific objective is to identify and to explain the type of errors committed by higher secondary school students on tenses in Andhra Pradesh. Now, this is being specific. The moment somebody reads your objective, the reader should clearly identify what is the area that you are going to focus upon. Now, are you going to just identify? Are you going to explore? Are you going to experiment? Are you going to you cannot use the term describe. Are you going to summarize? Right? Are you going to synthesize? So the way how you use your action words and how you are specific, like identifying the participants, identifying the method, When you're able to put down all these points in research objectives in 3 or 4 bullet points, then the readers can easily understand how good you are going to analyze your research questions. Use specific objectives. Your specific objectives should specify exactly what you will do in each phase of your study. How, where, when, and for what purpose. When you write your objective, how are you going to address? Why are you going to address? What's the purpose of addressing it? Put all the relevant WH questions. If you get answers for all your relevant questions, then you are focused on, you have clarity on doing your research. Supposing you wrote an objective and you did not get answers for your questions, WH questions, then that's the area you need to focus upon. Then your objective should be stated using action verbs that are specific enough to be measured. Action verbs related to remembering, avoid them, because you are an advanced stage of doing your work, your study. So always better avoid the first 2 stages of Bloom's taxonomy, action verbs. Avoid remembering and understanding. Focus on applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and creating. Creating is mostly used by technical scholars. Non-technical scholars, they'll highly rely on 3 and 4, applying and analyzing. Synthesizing and creating, that's quite relevant for technical scholars. To compare, to calculate, to assess, to determine, to verify, to describe, to explain. These are action verbs related, and these can be these action verbs are measurable. Instead, supposing you say that I want to know the type of errors in tenses committed by the students. Now, when you say I want to know, how are you going to know? I want to observe. How are you going to observe? So the word observe or know verbs, the verbs like know and observe, they are meaningless because you cannot measure them. When I say compare, calculate, assess, determine, these are the action verbs that are measurable. So use these action verbs. My recommendation again to you is, for non-technical scholars, go for 3rd level and 4th level, applying and analyzing. For technical scholars, synthesizing and creating action verbs related to Bloom's taxonomy. Avoid the use of vague non-active verbs such as to appreciate, to understand, to believe, to study, because it is difficult to evaluate whether they have been achieved. The readers, the adjudicators, and those who are eminent persons on the area of your research, they fail to measure your work when you use words like this: appreciate, understand, believe, because we cannot measure the understanding, we cannot measure appreciation, and we cannot measure belief, how much you believe on. That's why we need to avoid, as per the standards of research or as per the standards of the study, avoid using common verbs, go for action verbs. So we look at general objective. To identify factors that affect students' writing skills. This is an example of a general objective. Now look at specific objectives. To assess the knowledge, attitude, and practice of higher secondary students' paragraph writing skills. Now, one more objective. To identify the similarities and contrasts. Now, contrast belongs to level 3. Identify belongs to level 1. Now, I haven't left action verb identify. I haven't used only one action verb here. I'm using Bloom's taxonomy level 1 and 3 together. And developing is also come under 3. So identify the similarities and contrast in developing paragraph writing skills of higher secondary students based on their gender. Now this is very much specific. Identifying is done. Similar to what I'm trying to identify, the similarities and contrast in developing paragraph writing skills based on the gender. So this is how you need to write your research objectives. Always your research objective should be specific, because based on the specific research objectives, you will design your research questions. Now, the third point of my session today is research questions, writing research questions. A research question is around which you center your research. It should be clear. Primarily, there should be clarity in your research question. Provides enough specifics that one's audience can easily understand its purpose without needing additional explanation at all. The moment somebody reads your research question, it should be clear and it should be understandable. Now, they should not put any additional question on your research question. Be focused. It is narrow enough that it can be answered thoroughly in the space the writing task allows. Now, what does narrow enough mean, and how to write it thoroughly? Let me get back to specific objective. Look at specific objective 2. Identify the similarities and the contrast in developing writing skills of higher secondary students based on their gender. Now, the research question is, do the higher secondary school students have similarities in developing their paragraph writing skills based on their gender? Or else, to put it in another way, do higher secondary school students develop paragraph writing skills in the same way based on their gender? Now, this is how it's going to be a research question. So, research questions can be derived from objectives. Concise, make it short and simple, expressed in a few possible words. Never make it complex at all. And at the same time, it is not answerable with a simple yes or no question. Your research questions are not going to be yes or no questions. You need analysis based on the results that you produce on your research question. And arguable, its potential answers are open to debate rather than accepted facts. So always the research that you perform is debate. I'm going to close my session based on this point towards the end. I'll get back to this point again. Then categories of quantitative research questions. Earlier, before I mentioned that there are there is quantitative method, qualitative method. Now, what are the categories in quantitative research method? Now, the topic that you choose, let's say, I'm talking about writing skills now. Now, when I say writing skills, does a research work on writing skills require quantitative research or qualitative research? That is based on the research questions that I wrote for my research. Supposing my research demands participants, your research should demand, but not you. You should not see, because mixed methods research is a combination of two. Let me go over here. That's absolutely wrong. That should be based on your research questions. So the possibilities, quantitative research questions, the categories are descriptive research, that is a survey, attempt to describe the behavior of a population in regard to one or more variables. Now, variables are gender here, variables are place of living, that can be variable, and the study, the age can be variable, right? These are usually what questions. Now, comparative research questions. Now, comparative research questions are seek to discover differences between groups within the context of an outcome variable. Now, within the group, gender is a group. Within the group, there is male and female. Now, this is a comparative research question. Age factor. Do you belong to, you'll be giving a research question like, you'll be giving background information questionnaire like, I belong to 18, particular age group, 18, 19, 20, 21. Now, age is a group, and within age, there are 4 subgroups again. So this is where you will go ahead with comparative research questions. These questions can be casual as well. Researchers may compare groups in which certain variables are present with groups in which They are not. The combinations, once again, that is the requirement is based on the research question that you opt. Then relationship research questions designed to elucidate and describe trends and interactions among variables. These questions include the dependent and independent variables and use words such as association or trends. Dependent and independent variables. Now, see, dependent and independent variables are the statements in your questionnaires are independent. Then the age is dependent variable. These two variables will make comparison, or you'll bring these two. You'll identify the relationship between these two, your questionnaire and the age, your research, your questionnaire and gender, your questionnaire and place of living, your questionnaire and the medium of study. So you'll try to find out the relationship through research tools like ANOVA or T-test. There are good number of research tools, and I just give a few names based on what are requirement of our domain. Qualitative research questions. The categories existing for qualitative research questions are: first one, contextual research questions. Attempt to identify and describe existing conditions. Descriptive research questions. Now, descriptive research, descriptive study. Descriptive research is qualitative, descriptive study is quantitative. Please identify this difference. Both are not same. I repeat, descriptive research is qualitative, descriptive study is quantitative. Then evaluation research questions assess the effectiveness of existing methods, protocols, theories, and procedures. This is what linguists in our domain do actually. Explanatory research questions examine a phenomena or analyze the reasons or relationships between subjects or phenomena. Exploratories focus on the unknown aspects of a particular topic. This is exploratory research. Now, all these, so whether your research demands qualitative research or quantitative research, that needs to be identified based on the research questions, and research questions are based on objectives, and objectives are based on the gaps. And you derive gaps based on the research articles that you have read. So this is the link. Now, let's have a few examples on this point here. Descriptive research question. What are the characteristics cognitive learning theory? Cognitive characteristics of, I'm sorry. Comparative research question. How does loud reading activity improve oral communication? Now, this is the comparison. Correlation. Relationship between vocabulary learning and age. Exploratory. Is it possible that educational qualification has an effect on teaching learning process? Explanatory research. What is the cause of increased violence among young adults? Evaluation research. What is the efficacy of using edtech tools to develop oral communication among traditional graduate students? Now look at the last one. I was talking about clarity, concise, focus, and the moment someone reads your research question, they should not have any doubts on your research question. What is the efficacy of using edtech tools to develop oral communication among traditional graduate students? The moment somebody reads this research question, they can understand that you are taking edtech tools and you are trying to make a study on how these edtech tools are going to be supportive for students to develop their oral communication. Now, who are those students? They are graduating students, degree students. Which degree? Traditional, that means BA, BCom, and BSc. Now, this clarity, you need to put it in your research questions. This is essential when you write your research questions. Moving on. Now, good and bad research question examples. Vague research question is, how are children affected by exposure to social media? Now, specific research question. What is the effect of Instagram likes on the self-esteem of young children under the age of 12? So, you are not going to focus on children who are above 12 years of old. So, there is a clarity. Now, overly simplistic research question. Has there been an increase in bullying in the US over the past 10 years? focused research question. What has been the effect of after school and community programs on student disciplinary actions among elementary students? So unclear and specific. This is an example of, sometimes you can say that, even we can say that not unclear, we can say that general research question and specific research questions. Okay. Narrowing the topic, because we are talking about research questions, how to narrow down your topic. So writing skills is a too broad area. Now general topic is writing skills of higher secondary students. This is general topic. Now narrow the topic. Paragraph writing skills in higher secondary students is narrowing down the topic. Now, how do you bring out a research question on? Do male and female higher secondary students have similar paragraph writing skills? Now, supposing I come across this research question, it means I'm able to make a judgment that there is no research done on this area. Participants, this is just an example. I don't mean to say that there is no research done on this area. My point is, based on the research question that we design, it is clear to the readers that no research has been done on this area. And if they want to get back, they'll get back to objectives, from there to gap. Now, finally, let's come to the purpose of the study. This is what UGC is also focusing on these days. The purpose is more or less like how your research is going to be supportive for the society. Involves applying a theory to solve the problem. Tells the reader what the goal of the study is when you mention the purpose of your study. Includes brief information about direction, scope, where the data will come from. Must not only align with the problem and address a gap, it must also align with the chosen research method. That means the purpose of your study, identify the problem and let your readers know how are you going to address this problem. Now, identifying the problem is nothing but once again research gap. So once you identify the problem, how you are going to address your research questions will let your readers know that you are going to address in this way, and what are the methods used, what are the tools used. All these are part of your purpose of the study. Then, presentation process is iterative, repetitive. Iterative is repetitive, and your writing over time will be refined as clarity is gradually achieved. The more you write and the more corrections you do to your dissertation, and the more clarity you get, and the more refined your work will be. Most of the time, greater clarity for the purpose statement and other components of the dissertation is a result of growing understanding of literature in the field. So focus high on your literature review. If you have high focus on your literature review, just a minute. Okay. Right. I'm sorry. So if you have high focus on your literature review, that will make you understand why are you conducting your study on this area. Now, once you understand why are you conducting study on this area, it means you know the purpose of your study. As you increasingly master the literature, you will increasingly get clarity on the purpose of your study. Now, good purpose statements, what do they contain? Flow from the problem statement and actually address the proposed problem. Are concise and clear. Answer the question, why are you doing this research? UGC is putting this question, how much society is going, at what level society is going to get benefited from your research. Match your methodology to the purpose. Have a hook to get the reader's attention. Set the stage by clearly stating the purpose of the study is. Now, mention qualitative or quantitative and avoid mixed methods, because my recommendation to scholars is go for any one of them, but don't go for research mixed methods. Experienced researchers can handle mixed methods wonderfully. The purpose of study is nothing but Your problem statement, your research gap will take you to write your purpose of the study. Finally, this is the point that I mentioned that I'll be focusing towards the end of the presentation. Remember that when you write for your thesis, you're joining a debate. Whenever you give a talk in your respective universities, whether it is midterm or towards the end, you'll be joining a debate. Anything you write can be challenged, not because your argument is weak. So most of the time, scholars may feel bad on this point. When somebody puts your point on argument, don't weaken yourself. It's not because they are not trying to judge you. They're trying to judge your work. Because that is the nature of the context. Unless you are put questions, unless you are challenged, you cannot think broadly, or you cannot think with an open-mindedness. Entering the debate tentatively is probably a sound strategy. Debate then and there. Now, you can go to an extent that if somebody puts a question beyond your task, you can politely say that, Professor, my area is limited to this extent, so I haven't focused on that area. See yourself participating in rather than winning or losing the debate. Your purpose is not to win, or your purpose is not to lose. Your purpose is to participate and learn more. See yourself making your point clearly rather than demolishing or impressing the opposition. Never do it, but put your point with great clarity. Expect some to agree and others to disagree with your points. That always happens. This is inevitable in debate. Your purpose of joining the debate is not to win or not to lose, just to participate. And don't try to impress everybody. There will be people who agree to you and there will be people who disagree to you, because this is a debate. Right? And those who are participating in the debate are professors. Remember very well that they know better than you, and they can look at your problem statement or they can look at your research gap better than you. So when there are positive statements to take in, respect them. So that's the end of my session. If you have any questions are welcome.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Sir, I'm a beginner, sir, in this PhD journey, and I'm completely nervous for this. So,
Okay.
how to improve our writing skills, sir?
Just a minute. Can you let me know your
Yes.
domain?
My domain is EL, English language teacher.
Fine. Yeah. Tell me now.
So, as a new one, and I'm I'm not too good at it. So, how can we writing skills to write down the literature review for a sound literature review?
Fine. See, before you focus on writing literature review, I'll let you know a few steps. Try to follow them. I think they may lead you to write a good literature review. Point number
Sure,
one,
sir.
focus on writing, let's say, what was your day activity yesterday? First, write on this one. When you write your day activity, are you able to write your day activity in a paragraph or in 2 paragraphs? Are you describing it? Are you analyzing it? Are you just narrating it? Describing, analyzing, narrating. Right? So,
yes,
based on the style that you are writing in, suppose you just narrated it. Next time, rewrite again your day activity describing it. Next time, rewrite day activity analyzing it. Then the more, see, when you narrate it, it comes to a paragraph. When you describe it, it comes to 2 paragraphs. When you analyze it, it comes to almost a page. The moment you understand it, this art of writing, then identify which tense are you using it. This is a simple point. Then when you are good at writing in this way, then take out a page from any one of the research article. Like especially my recommendation is literature review. Read the literature review, which comes to 10 to 15 paragraphs in a research paper. Read all those 10 to 15 paragraphs and try to put it in your words. The information that you understood, try to put it in your words first. Primarily, you will be writing maximum of 2 to 3 paragraphs. The sum up of these 10 to 15 paragraphs, you may write it in 2 to 3 paragraphs, because you are trying to go for narrative task, right? Next time, when you keep on writing it, the more you write, the more you learn. The more better the more you can better your writing skills. So focus on what are the points that you missed, then go for describing it, then go for analyzing it. Slowly, step by step. This is a step by step procedure, and you cannot achieve it overnight. This is what even we recommend our students also. Okay, ma'am?
Yes, sir. But yes, sir. One more, sir. When we are writing literature reviews, can we take the sayings of different people will be there in the research papers, right? And articles.
The citations.
So, yes, sir, citations. So, can we elaborate that one in our literature review?
See, there are two ways of putting your citations. The first way is quote it as it is, right? And the second way of citing a citation is put the citation, paraphrase the citation. In yesterday's session, one of the ma'ams, the resource persons, she spoke length and breadth on paraphrasing. So first method is cite as it is. Second one, see, supposing you have the ability to paraphrase the citation to using the source again, then the chances of plagiarism is very limited. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
May I, sir?
Yesterday, technical issues, I could not get the complete class, sir. Can we get a video? I'm sorry to ask you like this.
Ma'am, you better speak to the organizers.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sorry, sir.
Yes, ma'am. We will share it, upload in YouTube.
Yes, sir.
After 2 weeks,
One question, sir.
in YouTube.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what may be the length of the literature review in research project and in research article and thesis?
See, length. We cannot say that it should be 2 pages or 40 pages. Your study should demand it. Let's say, see, you are talking about you want to use a methodology. Now, when you want to use a methodology, you need to identify who else used this method, when was it used, how was it used, and what were the results of that methodology, and how are you going to add something new to it. Now, based on all these points, now supposing you may start studying literature review probably from 1920s or 1940s or 1960s. How much research was conducted and what amount of good research can you take in? We cannot have a specific point like it should be 10 pages or 15 pages. But once you have done it, your supervisor can let you know what are the additions and deletions in your literature review. They can understand it better. Or else, when it comes to our own projects that we have, let's say we want to go for a project or we want to go for, if it is presenting your project for the first time, you can meet the seniors who presented it earlier and you can just let them know or ask them, tell you what are the additions and deletions to be made to the literature review. And if the recommendation is it should be, your proposal should not be more than 10 pages, then cut short your literature review, whereas see that the recent literature review is added in your proposal. Am I clear, ma'am?
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening, sir. The session is informative. Thank you, sir. I'm from English literature discipline. So what I need to know is articles, to read authentic articles, what are the platforms or journals need to know? We need to know.
UGC KRA and Scopus and Web of Science. That's my recommendation. You can download them. Supposing you are you have ResearchGate account and you have academia accounts. Certain papers you'll find them. These papers you'll find them in academia or ResearchGate too. So you can download these authentic papers from those sites. And some of the journal sites they'll you can download the papers freely also.
Shodhganga also we can take, right, sir?
Shodhganga, yes, we can, but Shodhganga contains thesis.
Okay.
Participants, the registration form, there is no registration form. The Google form was just given before the session so that I can understand what level of knowledge do you have on the topics that I am going to focus on today. That's all. It has nothing to do with attendance or something else.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening.
I'm Nidhi Katti, sir, from Department of History and Archaeology. So my domain basically is I'm working on Brahminical history, particularly on Madhva community. So, sir, when I'm working on this community, I came across in our university itself through some professors they criticize the title as a rightist thought as something like that. But when I had selected the title, I didn't had anything connected with rightist or leftist thought, nothing like that. Clearly it was related only with Madhva community's history because earlier works were not done on it. So when such situations occur for a researcher, how should they handle it? How should they keep the biasness away from their work? Because it's not particularly what I'm focusing on. I'm unbiasedly working on the just history of Madhva community, but the work is being criticized a lot in my department too and in the university also. So how to convince the regarding persons?
Okay, so this is what I told you. This is a debatable point. It's not like you want to convince somebody or impress someone. The point is, if you have evidences to prove that there is no work done on this area and your research is going to add something to the society, if you are convinced through evidences, if you have good evidences on this point and if you are convinced and your supervisor is also convinced the way how you work upon, and when you provide this evidence then and there, whenever somebody points you out, if you are able to provide the evidences, that's all. Because things when the debatable points are whenever topics on debatable points are taken up, there will be criticism, there will be a lot of criticism, but the topic itself demands it. It's not, they are not criticizing actually, they are focusing on the topic actually. So don't focus on impressing people and convince people, because your job is not to persuade people. Your job is to conduct study on the topic that you want to proceed with, and if there are substantial evidences for it, proceed. That's all from my end on this point.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Thank you
for
so much,
very
sir.
informative talk.
Thank you very much,
Dear
sir.
participants, we are moving to second session, and our speaker is Dr. K. Sasirega, Assistant Professor of English, Milkas Manikyam, Rameshwari College of Arts and Science, Madurai. Her teaching experience: 21 years of teaching experience, then organized national conferences, workshops, FDPs, and also the chairperson for paper presentations. Also worked as a language consultant for stylists, proofreading and editing. Publications in 10 journals, international journals, and presented 70 papers in conferences, and published with 2 book chapters. And Dr. Sasirega, also working as a research supervisor, handled 17 technical sessions, submitted 3 project proposals, and member of ELTAI, Indian Society for Technical Education. We are very glad to have you, ma'am. This session is yours.
Good evening, all the participants and the organizers for giving me this opportunity. And I'm just glad to address the participants on the topic, on the broad spectrum, research writing. And today, my session would be like a continuation of the earlier resource person's idea on research writing. And actually, he made a very elaborate and a comprehensive presentation on the topic. So my presentation would also support the participants. Are you able to see my screen? Would support on the same idea. For the same, let me present the screen now. Are you able to see my screen? Can someone confirm?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am. Yes.
And
Yes,
yes,
I can.
fine. So the session topic goes this way: research article writing and ways to avoid plagiarism. See, writing itself is a big challenge, and avoiding the plagiarism is another big nuances which the researcher are expected to practice. So the focus on this session will be seeing the writing mechanics as well as how the ways to avoid plagiarism also. And see, this slide and this part of the presentation will make you understand what is research article writing and the difference between a conference paper and again the research article. See, when we talk about research article writing, we have to understand as a researcher, there is going to be over a period of research, a complete research, which we will be published in the form of thesis by the end of the research period. It may varies from 3 years to several years based on the research, based on the experiments, and based on several factors. The duration for a research varies. Though it varies, by the end when it was documented, that is called as our dissertation. There is a difference between dissertation and this research article also. See, the part of our research, and when once after registering in the part of our research journey, every time we'll make a kind of deliberation in different forums. And we will make our research reading, researching, and other things. So once after developing a kind of understanding towards the research, or it may happen as a parallel process also, like research registration, and in that journey you will be started reading so many research articles, primary sources, secondary sources. There will be a pool of questions in your mind, and you will identify research gaps while reading the primary and secondary sources. You will be able to connect your ideas with the existing authors' works. This, that will formulate your own idea, and that would be the start point for you to write a research article. All right. So to make it very simple, research article writing is going to be a segment of your research. It could be in the early period of your research, or it could be in the middle of your research period, or by the end of the research. But every time, in every phase, the impact of your research article, I'm just talking in terms of ideology, there would be a customized modifications. That is the research space researchers gain based on the topic, based on the thrust area. And fine. So research article writing can take place in any segment of our research journey, and it is going to be a small segment of a research. I heard from the early presentation, the participants, most of the participants, at least 50% are from English domain, either a literature domain or ELT domain. So you could connect your ideology with the research article writing. See, when we have to make a research article, we have to apply a theory. Yes, if it is a literature, we have to talk about neoclassicism or surrealism or bi-feminism, like that, based on your work, based on the researcher's work, an appropriate theory to be selected, and through that theory you will try to make you will attempt a research paper. That's what I mean by application of a theory. See, just like that, we cannot talk about psychoanalysis of a pool of characters without the study of a psychoanalytical theory. So definitely, as a part of our research, we have to identify an appropriate theory, and the further research has to be carried away with the help of the research also. And the theory part will help us to refine our research. And this is what we have to be understood when we come to selecting a theory. All right, if it is literature or else language based or science, humanities, then it is going to be some theory or else some principle. It is going to be something textual. When it comes to science students or science stream, it is going to be a justification of the software or else a experiment. It goes in a different way. When literature based or language based or humanities based select a theory to justify the research, the science stream researchers will depend on a suitable software or a set of experiments that way. So the idea is very simple over here. The research tool is going to either a theory or else an experiment or else some software that has to be justified in our research article writing itself. And the next important part of research article writing is it is going to be an investigation, or it is going to be a several experiments, or it could be a studies also. Whatever it may be, it would come in the form of research paper, roughly around, it varies from article, journal to journal. However, the word count is 3,000 to 7,000 words for a standard journal. And let me give the similarities and the differences between research article writing and the conference paper writing also. When it is similar, but we have a slight differences as well when we take up the conference paper. See, conference paper is actually, that is also a part of a research work, and definitely that is also a part of that could also be taken for journal publication. And being a teacher come researcher, what personally we feel and we recommend to the research scholar is start writing conference paper than straight away going to research article writing. Because conference paper, when it is a someone is asking something. Is there a question?
No, ma'am. Please move on.
Shall I proceed?
Yeah, ma'am. You can proceed.
Yes. Still, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Fine. So, yes, see, conference paper, it is going to have a set of guidelines that will act as a kind of direction board or a kind of a blueprint for a researcher, young researcher. Whom we mean as researcher here over is a very young researcher, early researchers. So conference paper, writing conference paper is the good start for any researcher in the field, irrespective of their domain. The reason is it is time bound. See, when we receive a conference brochure, there is going to be a timeline. When can we register? When can you submit your abstract? Word limit would also be specified over there. And when will they say whether our abstract is accepted or not? When our abstract gets accepted, we can proceed with the full-length paper. When our abstract is selected, then we can proceed with full-length paper, and the full-length paper date submission, then conference date, presentation, whether they are going for conference proceedings or are they partnering with some journals. All these details are going to be the part of a conference. Since it has a very clear-cut timeline and a structured framework, the researcher, young researcher, and who wants to pursue research can begin with writing a conference paper. But if I have to say what's the difference between research article writing and conference writing is, we align the conference paper with the thrust area specified in the theme of the conference. When it is a research article writing, we have the liberty of customizing our research paper. When it is conference paper, again, we could connect the dots, but it should be based on the thrust area identified for that particular conference. I hope I'm just making you to get the difference between the research article writing and the conference writing, paper writing. And conference paper writing at the early stages recommended. The reason is very simple. It is for the structured framework and the timeline, it's time bound. And maybe this is also the extension of the previous slides idea. It also talks about what is a conference paper versus journal paper. So as mentioned earlier, conference paper, we have the choice of choosing the thrust area. So that advantage is always there when it is a conference paper. Then we could align our study or a portion of our study or a part of the experiment, and it could be connected with the thrust area, and accordingly a paper could be written. Yes, that will definitely suit the need of it will suit the conference proceedings also. However, the paper components are going to be working title, abstract, keywords, introduction. We'll have to talk about the paper objective, and followed by that a research question, hypothesis, a rationale, statement of problem, literature review, the research methodology used by the researcher, tools, we have to specify the tools, then how that development of paragraphs, findings, conclusion, reference. This is the rough paper component. Here, there is not much difference between a conference paper as well as the research article. Yes, the structure is very much similar. And we do, whether it is for a conference or for a journal, as a researcher, let's be very clear, it is a scientific writing. So here we cannot manipulate the details, and there is no space for imagination, creativity when it comes to academic scientific writing. So the paper has to be written based on the insights, inputs gained throughout the study. If not study, the experiments which has been taken place in the in the laboratory. All right. And so the early resource person, he was talking about Bloom's taxonomy to choose your for the word usage and other things. So that could also be considered when you frame your title. There is a difference between a general title and working title. Working title should have the keywords of the research and also the verbs. Yes, the action verbs which clearly specify whether you are defining the problem or evaluating the problem or giving an analysis of the problem. So this is what we mean by working title. And your research based on the domain, the keywords, whatever you feel is important has to be brought in the title, and kindly use the appropriate verbs. Here I just insist again, let it be action words. It is like analysis or examine, evaluate, critique, that kind of Bloom's taxonomy recommended verbs could be helpful while you framing the title. Fine. The title part is over. So the next step of a researcher for writing a research article is preparing an abstract. So it's not very simple, but we could brainstorm, or else we, as a researcher, I could mind map, and as a whole, what is going to be my research? That is what I wanted to present it as a kind of abstract. Maybe to make you understand better, nowadays there is a teaser, a 30 seconds teaser before a full-length movie. But by seeing the teaser, we'll understand what is the genre of the movie. The same way, the abstract should give the complete picture about the full-length paper. What is the research question? What are the area is going to be focused by the researcher? And definitely, what is going to be the conclusion part, concluding part of the paper? That also should be given in the abstract itself. So it should be very wholesome. It should be presented in a wholesome way. It shouldn't be presented in bits and pieces. Segmentation is not allowed in abstract. Abstract, though, it's a tricky business. Many journals, they would count words. So it is going to be 300 words or 200 words like that. So as precisely, the holistic idea of the particular paper has to be presented as an abstract. And definitely, you as a researcher, you should read 15-20 different abstracts from a standard journals. That will give you an idea about how to write an abstract. Reading and developing idea, then writing is the best research track, best research practice also. Without reading, due to the social factors or due to this pressure, that pressure, instead of copying, yes, the best research practice or the research ethics is at least reading appropriate 20 samples and keeping all those frameworks and ideas in your mind, you could go about with your own abstract writing. Then in the introduction part, we'll be giving the overview of the research design, the methodology used in the paper or else in the experiment, and its significance, of course, that also to be mentioned. And when it is overview, we have to make the thesis statement. And here, from general to specific, specifically, the thesis statement has to be drawn. The example which comes to my mind very immediately is people are talking about artificial intelligence nowadays. And so artificial intelligence is an umbrella term. When I use artificial intelligence for writing a as a writing tool, then I am I'm just narrowing down the general topic artificial intelligence to writing skills. This is what we mean by narrow down the scope from general to specific. It has to take a paradigm shift from generic to specific. Then definitely the research article, whether it is a conference paper or a research article, it should have a research objective and it should have the research questions also. Sometimes both, or else at least any one of these. Without research objective or without research questions, no research paper can be written. And the methodology has to be elaborated. How the data has been collected, what tool has been equipped, whether it is a conventional tool or a very latest tool, or else any customized tool or any tailor-made tool, all those details and how the data has been collected, how the study was conducted, whether it is a one sitting experiment or several sitting experiment, and a different climate, like that depends upon this research area, different study, different environment to be done for elaborating the research methodology. And literature review, this is where we start our research procedure. Yes, and before anything, just after the first thing after registering, or else the pre-registration process starts with the reading. So we choose a research topic based on our interest, personal interest, or else something which is the most required in the society, or something most discussed topic, or else something very recent. That is the way we choose our topic. If something is something is very trending, researcher would like to take up that particular topic. See, if it is what is that? Earlier sometime, almost all engineering background researchers worked on IoT, Internet of Things, for this, that. Then cloud computing was the cup of tea of many researchers. Nowadays, there is a shift and people are talking about the ChatGPT. Like that, whatever is latest, whatever is recent, that way also we could choose our research area. But however, there is going to be early literature for that. Early research in the sense it is published books, unpublished books, articles, journal, e-books, everything will come under the reading part. So using different sources from print to digital, we have plenty of resources nowadays to start the research reading procedure. When the research reading, when you feel, as a researcher, when you gain the confidence of penning down, the first step to begin our research writing starts with the writing literature review, not with any other chapter, because after all, that is something which gives a direction to us, a clarity towards our research. Okay, all these early researchers talked about these points. So this is what the research gap. My research is going to find a solution for these problems. So that clarity, research clarity, will be developed based on literature review only. So that's where we are going to start our writing process. Then when the next stage of after literature review is going to be interpretation of data analysis. This is going to be a kind of in-depth study of the research. So there, as a researcher, practically you will understand how the research idea ignites, how it develops, sometimes how it diminishes, how it disappears, then how you are reviving it. all these things you will understand when you make an interpretation of data analysis. That is actually an ongoing process, ongoing research process, which will make you to dive deep into the research. When you make an interpretation with an experiments or the data analysis, that will a step far ahead in your research work. Then once that part is over, there is going to be a finding that could be presented in the form of a conclusion, suggestion, recommendation, summary, and what is the future scope of that study. And we conclude, the definitely when the writing part is over, or as a parallel part, we have to talk about the reference sections also. How are we going to cite our works? Whether it is going to be MLA format or APA or IEEE, those things has to be decided when it comes to the reference section. Then it is a kind of a repetition. Why a significant role is there for a conference paper? Must be the participants might have registered your research very recently, or might be 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years old. So I guess by this time all would be checking for particular conferences, and you would be interested in writing papers and getting it published. So again, it is to insist that I got this slide over here. It is the thrust area is specified, time focused, better clarity, and advantages already we discussed. And the most important recommendation for this session is, when it is a conference paper, though there is going to be a plagiarism checker, the percentage variation could be slightly higher in conference paper. If they fix it as 15% for reputed journals, it would be like a 20% in the conference papers. So that will be an eye-opener for a researcher to think about what is plagiarism and how the percentage could be reduced, how it could be minimal. All those ideas can be practically originated when you write conference paper only, to insist that the slide has been placed over here. Now, let's understand what is a plagiarism check and what's the review process. As suggested, as informed earlier, scholarly journals accept below 15%, and conference proceedings, they go up to 25%. It varies. It is not something very fixed. It varies. And plagiarism checker softwares are institutionalized, and the very known software, plagiarism softwares are Wurkund, Turnitin, Scribble, Grammarly, etc. And now let's see the ways to avoid academic plagiarism. As a researcher, we will not deliberately copy. Yes, based on our experience and observation, we will not intentionally copy, but when we are impressed with some idea, when we are impressed with the idea, we would like to borrow the idea. When we borrow the idea, sometimes we borrow, as a researcher, we borrow the words and language used by the early researchers. Then it would become, though it is unintentional, it is part of a intellectual theft. And it is going to be identification software, plagiarism identification software. And among the see, the efficacy of an identification software is, if you chose something from the published work, in a second, in a microsecond, it will be detected. Once it is detected, then as a researcher, though it is not intentional, you were something impressed and you just borrowed the idea unintentionally or forgetfully, you have used a set of words used by the early researchers, but still you have to cut a sorry figure. It not just end up with cutting a sorry figure, it goes beyond that. It will puncture your research image. And for a period, either the reviewer would say that you have to send it back, or sometimes they would reject your paper also. When it is a rejection, it would be the very painful part of the research, and it would be a very upsetting part of the research journey also. So what is insisted over here is, it is not manual detection, it is a software detection. So the software, when you are taking some idea or something from the published work, as a researcher, you have to not doubly careful in multiple ways. You have to be very cautious while taking that particular source. All right. Then how to avoid it? That's what we are going to see. Use punctuation marks and references appropriately. Quotation marks. See, if it is an ML, if literature students must be familiar with the MLA citation. When we quote something, exact wordings, then it will become within double quotation. And if I place it something single inverted comma, then it has some specific notion. If if a period is used, if a 3 dot is used in the beginning of my quotation, then it indents something over that. Like that, a quotation marks, the punctuation marks plays a very, very vital role in the writing mechanism. When the quotation marks and references are placed appropriately, that is the biggest way to avoid academic plagiarism. And another simple suggestion is, find exact quotation. Yes, and use a well-formed reference. What I mean by well-formed reference over here is, if it is a conference proceeding, there is going to be a guideline. Follow MLA 7th edition. Follow APA 8th edition. And follow IEEE format. This is what we mean by well-formed reference. So, and the other way to avoid academic plagiarism is going to exact quotation. When I say exact quotation, so, see, people got their own version of telling different laws and other things. Like Newton says, the third law is has every action and every action has its equal and opposite reaction. See, instead of changing the word order, or instead of ignoring the word, if I put the exact quotation within the quotation marks with the well-formed reference from where I have chosen that, that is the biggest way to avoid the academic plagiarism. And paraphrasing, another big challenge when it is coming to writing part. Always, even the research supervisors and the research guides would advise the scholars, all right, you could paraphrase it. And we observe young scholars are using a quill part, a paraphraser, this, that, whatever open source is available for paraphrasing. Goodness, it end up as a kind of grammatically correct sentences, but the idea will never be communicated when you use paraphrasing, open source for paraphrasing your idea. Instead, You paraphrase, you comprehend, and you bring it in your words, in your choice of words. When you write it on your own, please understand and please take care. There shouldn't be overlapping of original words. And original words should be minimal, and your vocabulary to be used over there. So that way you could avoid plagiarism. Though we are paraphrasing, paraphrase it with the references, and overlapping is always there when we paraphrase it. The chances are very bright when we paraphrase the overlapping of original words. So use your original words, and cite references when using facts. Sometimes in the process of writing, we'll be using the facts. See, for a very simple example, like a news report. Though it is a news report or a technical report or something which is known to everyone, like sun rises in the east, this I am just taking as an example, a very known fact, still cite references. From which reference you are citing that particular fact, that has to be definitely incorporated inside your research work. And don't copy the phrases. Whether it is a sentence, phrases in this mean more than 3 words. If more than 3 words is used continuously or from different part of the sentence or different part of the phrase, then it is a plagiarism. You cannot, because the software is going to identify that as a plagiarism. This source has been taken from this and this article. So it will be a very rude shock to you. How come I just took a part of 2 words from here and in the end part another 2 words? But it is going to be a 4 word. So naturally it end up as a plagiarism only. So don't copy, but it is exempted for standard expressions, technical and statistical expressions. Then even in the beginning I said, even idea plagiarism should also be avoided. To avoid idea plagiarism, you just acknowledge from where you borrowed the idea or where the idea ignited, or which idea you were impressed and proceeded your work. So that idea should also be acknowledged. That is another biggest way to avoid plagiarism. And technology, of course, it is for our support. We don't have any second thought about it. But don't rely on AI tool. One simple example is Philpart can rephrase sentences in many different ways, at least 2-3 different style, 2-3 different version, but it will not be your work. Your idea will not have been conveyed through AI tool. Anyway, it is an artificial intelligence. It is not your original intelligence. There is a big difference between artificial intelligence and human intelligence. So rely on your study, rely on your research ideas, and write on your own. That is the suggestion to avoid academic plagiarism. So again, as a continuation, track sources. Whatever, from wherever sources you're collecting the details, and it has to be cited appropriately, and use the guidelines given for research publication as well as for paper. And before typeset, it may sounds little odd to the present generation, and you may feel that it is a waste of time, or else sometimes a double work when I say don't typeset. If you want to avoid plagiarism, write, then transfer it to the computer. Instead, straight away, if you sit for typesetting your script or your paper, the computer, the smartness inside the computer would suggest you a few things. And since there are many windows you kept open to refer to, you will get tempted to use the same words, same phrases, or the same ideas. So to avoid all those slips, the slip charts can be very easily avoidable when we write it on our own. And paraphrasing, when you rephrase, don't keep the same set of keywords, reuse it. And to reuse the rephrasing of words, one simple suggestion is you can go for synonyms, or else you can use a customized one-word substitution. Then fine. We were talking about research article writing and also the ways to avoid the plagiarism. Fine. There is a beautiful paper has been written. And as a researcher, you have to decide whether you should go for a conference proceeding or a journal article. If it is an initial researcher, by this time you would have got the answer. It is going to be conference proceeding. If it is middle part of your research journey, then definitely it should be a journal article. Anyway, by the course of your research, there is going to be a research outlook, and you could act accordingly. It varies case to case. If there is no like a pressing need to publish it, then you just wait for, and you could go for a journal publication. If there is a pressing need before the submission, your paper has to be published in 2 conference at least, then you just go with conference proceedings. And if it is conference, I believe you must be aware of it. We need not give the full length paper. Abstract itself is enough. Unless they ask, we need not give them a full length paper. For presentation, abstract is enough, not the full paper is required. And even if it is a conference paper, make a quick review on the institution, which department is organizing it, who is sponsoring for that program, for that conference. Is it UGC sponsored or ACT, DRDO, like that? It is not just branding, it is the value. If it is going to be UGC sponsored and from the premier institution, then they would also have the professional ethics. So naturally, we could go decide on. Basically, that is how we are. As a researcher, you have to rate and review before you making a paper submission for a conference proceeding also. And when it is a journal publication, as a researcher, you should be aware of the clone and predatory journals. And nowadays, the conference, through conference, they are getting association with some journals also. So in the conference brochure itself, it would have been stated like select papers will be published in Scopus indexed journals or Web of Science, this, that. So check it very clearly with the organizing secretary, and how in what duration it will be published in the H indexed journals or Scopus indexed journals. Then full paper, if see for some reason the paper has been published in a conference proceeding, the same paper cannot be republished in a journal. Once it is published, whether it is a conference proceeding or else a simple local, sometimes in-house publication, they would go for in-house publication also. In that case also, it cannot be republished. And when it is through a conference, as a researcher, you and your guide can decide whether you can go for UGC Care List or Scopus List or Web of Science. All those things you have to clearly identify, and accordingly you have to proceed with the organizing secretary. And when it is a review process, please be aware of it. If it is peer reviewed or blind reviewed,
Excuse me, ma'am.
sometimes-
Excuse me, ma'am.
yes.
One query, ma'am, regarding this. Sorry to disturb you, but one query is there regarding this process. As you have said that when you are going to publish your paper in conference as a conference article, but as I know, this publishing is not known as a journal publishing, but it is known as the book chapter, right?
Whether it is a book chapter or a conference paper or a research article, writing process is the same. Is that clear, ma'am? Is that clear? Writing process is the
Ma'am,
same.
yes, I know the writing process is the same, but what is the difference? And when we go for the API, when we go for the promotion, and the numbers are different. Book chapters are lower than the research papers.
Could you come again, ma'am? Sorry, I couldn't get you properly.
Ma'am, I mean to say that you are saying the process is the same. Either we
Yes.
are going to writing book chapter or for the research article or for the conference article, right? But
Yes.
why the number, when we go for the promotion, when we go to counting the numbers, then the difference of the numbers is lower for the book chapters, as the number for the general writing, number for the research paper is higher.
Definitely, book chapters, sometimes the book chapters also acknowledged and indexed in Scopus journals, ma'am. There are dual purpose. Sometimes it depends upon the conference organizers proceedings. The same paper would have been indexed in Scopus journal, and it would come as a part of a book chapter also. That provision is there. See, here we cannot say this shouldn't be, this is simply how to say that only the host institution will decide. Sometimes they would end up with the book chapter itself. Sometimes they will take it to the next level. All right, the book chapters, it has come with a very quality thing. Then it would be indexed in with some ISBN number and other thing. Then they will make another streamline or a filtration. And if your paper comes under that filtration and if it is selected, they would recommend it to Scopus or other things. Maybe quickly, I'm almost in the end part of the presentation. Could you please wait, ma'am, so that the end we could quickly complete the presentation and we can reserve Q&A. Is that okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Yes. This is what. So the different review process is going to be there. And as a researcher, you please understand what is the review process involved in it. And when there is a review, there is going to be a timeline for it. And you have to patiently wait for that timeline. Respect timeline in the sense, if it is peer reviewed, it will take some 10 days. If it is blind reviewed, then it is going to be 2 weeks time or at least 1 month time. Double blind reviewed process, then it is a little lengthy process. So accordingly, the time varies. As a researcher, we should understand the review process and we should not be in a hurry and respect the timeline. And make you just check the communication between the publisher or else between the publication. It is going to track the thread mail communication. And the cloned journals would have a slight spelling modifications in the website or else in the URL they would have mentioned. So that is one way to cross-check whether it is a cloned website or an authenticated website. And to check whether the journal is in that particular database, we have to refer to the UGC Careless Database, Scopus List, LZBay. And another thing which we have to remember, it is not something ever fixed. It is every now and then people review, and periodically there is going to be exit list and also entry list for the journal list also. So it could, that is another way. So a journal which you wanted to publish in at present would be removed from the Scopus list also. That's why it is better to check it in the database straight away rather than asking people. And this is the kind of final thing I wanted to say to conclude this presentation, whether to present or publish. Yes, as a researcher, it is my right. I can make my participation, presentation, and publication. Yes. So conference participation, then conference presentation, and then publication. Usually the triple P's should go by this order. When the research, once the research process is kick-started, you could start participating in the conferences, then paper presentations, then the next stage is publishing articles. But you are the master to decide whether you wanted to present it or publish it. You could decide on that. And to decide PhD guidelines, whether it is a part of your coursework, duration, such factors, as a researcher, you understand, you discuss with your research guide and accordingly decide to publish or to present a full free paper. Yes, when I see, I didn't mean error-free paper. Yes, it should be, there shouldn't be any copied version, copied content. That's what we insisted in different slides and in different occasion of this presentation, the ways to avoid plagiarism, and that is more important when it comes for research article writing. And here I just end up my presentation, and now the floor is open for Q&A. And I guess I could stop sharing the screen, and the floor is available to open to ask questions.
One question more, ma'am.
Ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, you have a talk about literature review. And
Yes.
definitely when we are going to write down about literature review, we point out our discussion after so many articles, research articles. Whether a book may be a part of literature review?
You mean to say a part of the book, ma'am?
Yes, part of the book. When we are reading different types of books, they may be the part of our literature review or not.
It is part of your literature review. You need not have a second thought about it. It is part of your literature review.
Then we have quoted the name of that particular book.
Definitely. That's what I mean by citations and giving references, ma'am.
Okay.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, can you suggest some tools for us to improve our literature writing, ma'am?
Ma'am, to be very honest, I don't rely on tools. Yes. If you start rely on the tools, you will miss your originality. It is not going to be your original writing. So which I haven't practiced, I cannot talk about.
Okay. So what is the way that you use for a good sound literature review writing?
It has been mentioned in the part of the presentation. Based on our reading, it should be our original writing. That is the only way to proceed with our research. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, I have a question, query.
Yes, sir.
If I present a paper in a seminar or conference, can I publish the same paper in a UGCKL listed journal or is Scopus Index journal? Can you hear me?
Sir, your voice is, yes, I could hear you, but the voice is breaking. Could you tell me again, sir? Could you ask the question again?
Okay, I'm repeating my question. If I present my paper in a conference or seminar, can I publish the same paper in a UGCKL listed journal or is Scopus Index journal?
No. No, sir, you cannot. You cannot, because it is published in a research, in the conference proceeding. So when it is published in one forum, it cannot be republished in the UGCKL list or else in any journal. I'm not even just talking about.
If it is not published in the book or conference or seminar, then I can publish.
Book chapter is possible, but definitely not in the journal again.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Sasega, ma'am, for very informative talk.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. It's mutual.
Dear
I guess I
participants,
can leave.
Yes, ma'am. Dear participants, we are
Thank you
moving
so
to
much,
third session.
participants. Yes.
And our speaker is Dr. Narasimha Murthy, SV, Associate Professor of English, Presidency University, Bangalore, India. Professional experience is many years of professional experience and is administration as a principal coordinator, head of the department, is academic responsibilities, are course in charge for technical spoken communication in Presidency University and works as a research supervisor. Its academic achievements as BOS member in Jain University, Bangalore, BOS member JSS College of Arts, Science and Commerce, Mysore is award. He got Distinguished Resource Person Award from Lavender Literary Club, Kanyakumari, Tamil Nadu. He has published many papers in international journals and conducted more workshops, FDPs. We are very glad to have you, sir. This session is yours.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gino. Thank you for that very generous introduction. And in fact, I was listening to Dr. Shashirika's wonderful session about research, and article publication, research publication. And I am wondering what to speak with you. But, I have been given very less time by the organizers. Thank you for that less time so that, I can limit my scope. And I would like to share 2-3 observations as a research supervisor and also as a thesis adjudicator. I have got about 7 scholars, research scholars, and one has been awarded PhD. And whenever they come to me with an article, because I insist, it's mandatory for most of them that they must publish at least an article in a semester. I'll give them, first semester I'll give them some time, but from second semester onwards, I insist that they must publish. They must publish. The very purpose, the reason is they'll get used to academic writing. And I can see, especially the people who have spent more than 2 years with me doing research, I can see a lot of difference when they submit their chapters. But I have seen with one of my students who is actually writing his thesis right now, I had asked him to publish papers and he has published already 5 papers, submitted 1 more. and he has taken it very seriously. In fact, he has crossed my expectations. And when I see those papers, articles, research articles in particular, I can see that influenced, that has a huge impact on his writing a chapter. Simple thing, like transitions or a easy flow of ideas, thoughts. So what I suggest for all of you who are into research, try, write, and publish. Publish it anywhere. It need not be UGC care, it need not be Scopus. Try publishing anywhere. Nowadays, you got plenty of chances. There are plenty of journals which publish most of our articles. In fact, I remember my first publication way back some years, some 10 years ago. It was published in a conference proceeding. That gave me little confidence, and I started publishing. I have published in UGC Care and in all other peer-reviewed journals and also Scopus. Now, why I'm telling you this, this is one of the important area because writing needs a lot of practice. You will get a hold of writing, especially academic writing, when you start writing and publishing. In fact, I have seen some of my scholars finding it very difficult initially. I mean, so much and so that, I always tell them, publishing an article is not a big thing. It's not at all a big thing. First time, when they listen to this, they will be startled. What is this person? How can I say that it is not a big thing? I'll just give you a brief idea with, shared by one of my very senior professors long ago. I would like to repeat the same thing, but that's not a problem. How many words that a good journal, a peer-reviewed journal, expect you to write? Usually, I need an answer. I'm expecting an answer for this. How many words usually do a journal expect us to write for a research article?
Sir, from 3,000 words to around 5,000 words.
Excellent, madam. Excellent. Anybody else? I'll go with Nidhi ma'am, Nidhi Katti ma'am. And I'll go with her, certainly. Usually, it will not be less than 2,500 words to 4,000, 5,000, depending on the journal. Okay. Let us say, ideally speaking, let us say 3,000 words. Let us say 3,000 words. How can we divide this into different parts? Barring abstract, I'm talking only about three things: introduction, body, conclusion. Now my question is, how many words can we write for introduction? And remember, introduction need not be your own. When I say need not be your own, not like the discussion part. You can borrow, you can cite, you can give a lot of references. How many words do you think usually a good journal expects? A normal journal. I'm not talking about very high-end journal. Normal journal expects you to write. Say, for example, 600 words. 600 words. A good introduction will be very effective with 600 words, which you can write after making some references, some literature review, such thing. This is 600 words. Okay. Now I'll come to the next part, literature review. Whenever you write an article, whenever you make an attempt to write an article, you have to make a lot of references. You have to refer to many websites, books, articles, journals, all those things. I want to tell you this about, very particularly, you can keep around 500 words for this, at least 400 words. See, out of 3,000, we have done with an introduction and literature review almost 400 plus 600,000 words are already done.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Are you
Please,
sharing your screen?
no, I'm not scanning it. I'm not sharing any
That's okay.
screen.
Just wanted to know because I was thinking that I'm missing something. No problem. Thanks.
I don't think you are missing anything. Even if you don't listen to me, I don't think you'll miss anything. So coming back to this, almost 1,000 words are over. See, your introduction and your literature review, because you have to establish one fact. And usually I'll tell my students, even in the class, I tell, whenever you write anything for that matter, any communication for that matter, 3 questions you should answer in the introduction, in the literature review here. But here, we need to take it very seriously. For example, what is the topic? First question, what is the topic? Second, what is your objective? What is your goal of writing this article? Third, what is the scope? How much? How much can you cover? So if you can answer these 3 questions, comfortably, you can bring in some 300 to 400 words in the introduction. Then literature review. Literature review should be done for a simple reason that, there is already a lot of work has been done in that particular area, that specific area. How different is your article from the rest, and what is your contribution? How do you add to the existing knowledge? Now, I always remember and I always quote wherever I speak about this, on many occasions I have quoted this. I always remember the essay, Tradition and the Individual Talent by Eliot. So here there is a tradition and your article will be a new individual talent. And that talent should go and sit suitably with the tradition. And once you write and publish, that will become another tradition. Therefore, when I say literature review, the literature review helps you to identify what are the other areas or the fields of study in that particular topic. That is one thing. Second thing, it will help you to identify the gap. And you are trying to fill that one gap that you have found out. In fact, when you do research, especially when you write theses, I have seen people, doing this seriously. And at the end, I have seen people suggesting further reading, further studies, scope for further studies. And this is a very important thing when you are planning to write an article. You should always identify the gap and you should tell how you are going to fill that one gap. There will be several gaps. You are going to fill one of the gaps. And how do you do it? So with this, you can complete 1,000 words. Remember, not much of your own here. Not much of your own. You can bring references, you can do a lot of literature survey, and you can bring in analysis, you can think critically. You can also, if you're using any theoretical framework, you can talk about that theoretical framework within these 1,000 words. Now, I'll come to the major aspect of our article. That is, nothing but your discussion, your analysis, your explanation. And here you have to create at least 2 to 3 subheadings. 2 to 3 subheadings, minimum 2 subheadings to discuss your topic. Whatever the topic may be, at least minimum, I'll tell you, 2 subheadings. Again, this is where you have to work, you have to think, you have to analyze, and this is where you have to use your originality. And your original thought process, your original thinking, and your original ideas, you should take the help of, again, various sources, citations to support your idea. So this is the one aspect which really will test you. Definitely this will take more time. You need to sit, think, formulate a research question, and that research question should be answered in this section of body. And I expect you to write at least 1,500 to 1,600 words. You can see that 1,000 introduction plus review of literature. Another 1,500 to 1,600 is the discussion and body. And if you can concentrate on these 1,600 words properly, again, in those 1,600 words, you can borrow some 200 to 400 words from citations. Remember, your planning is the most important thing. Then definitely, 1,000, how can you do that? Develop the idea. What is the research question? Try to find answers. Try to support your argument. Try to justify your stance. Now, this is very important aspect of any article writing. So after this, just 400 words of conclusion. Here, in conclusion, again, you need not try anything. Whatever that you have been writing, just summarize that and reiterate the objective, because that's very important. Reiterate the objective and see how you have filled the gap effectively, how your purpose or the objective or aim is being achieved, is being completed in this. So taking these things, according to me, the first 500 to 600 words, and then next 1,500 words, these two aspects, are very important, especially the body, the discussion, which will help you to channelize your thought process, to channelize your ideas. Remember, I in fact, I was listening to Dr. Shashireka. She was very generous with plagiarism. I thought she was very generous with plagiarism, especially with conference papers. And you can avoid a lot of plagiarism when you write with preparation. And of course, as you are all aware of things, lot of opportunities, lot of software is available, paraphrasing. I would suggest that take the help of those softwares, but try to make it your own. Align it with your idea. You can definitely do it. And I have seen people doing it. My own scholars, when they ask them to rewrite, they go simply and they'll change everything and they'll come back. And of course, I keep asking a lot of questions to them. I keep suggesting a lot of corrections. And some of them will be talking to themselves. Oh, whatever I give, there is some suggestion, there is some correction. Probably that is the duty of a supervisor. And another thing that I want to share, before I conclude, because it's already 2020, 8:20. I would like to conclude in 5 minutes. Most important thing, we take a lot of pain. We struggle a lot to prepare an article. But most of the articles, in fact, I have been evaluating a thesis now. I really wonder what is wrong with our scholars. The very first sentence of the thesis, there is a grammatical mistake. And as I proceed, third person, second person, first person, all mix up is there. A lot of spelling errors. There are many softwares which check spellings, but never depend on that completely, because software has a limitation. And another thing that I observed, especially the alignment. Sometimes, they're very poorly aligned. You may think that they're very mechanical, but I'll tell you, all these things matter a lot. There can be, because I have been a reviewer for 2 journals. They're very particular about that. Simple alignment. You can select all and click alignment. Simple thing I can see. I do not want to show you, but I have kept that one thesis here, but I do not want to show it to anybody because it's confidential. It is with me. Right now it is with me. I have been evaluating, and I'm very sorry to say that for a poor spelling mistakes, simple spelling mistakes, just to give you an idea, I would like to read. Now the problem is, if I read that, somebody may feel bad or hurt. My intention is not that. I'll something like, I'll the very beginning, I find the mistake. There is no verb in the very first sentence. There is no verb in the very first sentence. I have it here. When I started reading, the very first sentence, baffles me. But, I have struggled hard for my PhD. I know that all of us struggle hard. Please take care of those things. And some of our supervisors are too busy to observe all those things. But a good supervisor, a responsible supervisor should take care of that. It is the responsibility. And hardly, they spend 3 years with us. And if we can spend 2 weeks, that we can make it much better. A few mechanisms we can teach them. Citation style we can teach them. Alignment we can insist. Grammar, there are many tools that check grammar. We can definitely make our article or thesis much neat and better. So my humble submission to all the researchers, is just check for these mechanical devices. See, they go a long way in creating an impression. As a reviewer, I would reject if there are. I'm very serious about, whenever it comes for a review article, I would definitely reject it. If there are any grammar mistakes, remember, we are teaching language, we are teaching literature. I cannot expect a mathematics teacher. I'm not saying that they should not write legibly, they should not write without any mistakes. A mathematics teacher, if he makes some mistakes, such simple mistakes, I think, we should be generous to accept that. But, when it comes to English teachers, researchers, I am sorry to say that it's not permitted. It's not good also on our part. Take care of simple things, very simple things, every university, every university has its own rules and regulations. But beside that, take care of your spelling, grammar, sentence structure. And most of the articles, I found this another thing, Indianized English. Sometimes I feel that it's a direct translation of Hindi, Kannada, Tamil. And remember, English sentence structure is entirely different. The tense sequences are unique in English. So keeping all these things, my advice is take care of a few things before you send it for any publication. Check, recheck. What I advise, you edit the document carefully. Editing is necessary. Here, one suggestion is you can take the help of your colleagues, your teachers, your professors, and anything, please give it to a person whom you are not in touch. Because when you give it to a person that knows, there is a chance of hey, everything is good, fine, good. Avoid giving it to such people. Even accept honest criticism, honest, and you give feedback honestly. People may not like it, but you are helping them actually. Help each other. Take the help of your colleagues, your fellow researchers, your professors, supervisors, which will make your article better. So with this, I think the time given to me, I was about to start at 7:45. You know the reason. I do not want to exceed time. It's almost 26 past 8. With this brief session, I would like to conclude my session. And I do not want to say questions, any discussion you are most welcome. you can contribute. I want you to speak also. You can speak about your experience.
Thank you, sir. Sir, first of all, I very thank you for you as you have very beautifully described about the measurement of the paper. Really, this is the real aspect of this workshop. Definitely, sir.
Thank you, Neeru ma'am. Thank you.
Sir, my question is regarding this, whether the words of abstracts also
No,
include
ma.
in this paper or
No,
not?
abstract is, that is why I made it very clear, excluding abstract 3000 words. Abstract is not a part of the article. It's a separate
But yes, sir, you are right. I am also thinking about this, but many times I have seen that this is also mentioned, including abstract also.
Yeah, as I told you, some journals, they would take abstract also into account. Depending on the journal's specifications, you can. But according to me, I would never consider abstract as, when it comes to the, I would like to quote your word, measurement of words, I would like to exclude abstract. Remember, abstract is nothing but an essence of the whole article. Therefore, I would not consider. As a reviewer, I would not accept it also. But again, it depends on the specification of every journal.
Okay. Thank you once again, sir, to provide such a good presentation in a very short time, but you have presented a lot of things.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Sir, at first, when we are sit for writing an article, my pen won't move. So, what are your suggestions in order to improve our results?
Sir, on a lighter note, don't use pen, sir.
Okay.
Use pencil. I think pencil will move. Yes, sir. Balram sir, I completely agree with you. All of us have had this problem. This is not an exclusive problem of any one individual. In fact, the moment we sit to write, we realize the shallowness of our study, our preparation, our research. Sir, one thing that you can do, when, for example, you have decided to write on some aspect, let us say it's a subaltern study of Perumal Murugan's novel. Just, recently I was reading an article about Perumal Murugan's novels. One of my scholars published it very recently. Today he had brought to me. So you can think of three things here. One, the theory aspect. The second, Perumal Murugan's novel. Third, how can you adopt this theory in studying this one novel? Any novel for that matter. So when you make these three things, separate, you can start reading. And while reading, sir, please always keep a pencil. No, on a lighter note, I said, but I insist that keep a pencil, underline anything that you feel comfortable, that you feel relevant to your argument. Underline that and try to bring it out. Now, what I do, whenever I read an article, I underline. Whenever I feel some lines are very significant or very interesting, I'll separate them with citation, page number. If it is an online journal, online, the date, time of my, the time, date that I access that journal, all these things, sir, just make an outline, sir. First thing, we need outline. Before you start, use your pen, make an outline and start thinking more about it, analyzing about it. Just concentrate on that only. And somewhere, it should become like an obsession. The moment it becomes an obsession, sir, once you make a lot of preparation, you take your pen and you have to stop the pen. Pen will never stop you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Sir,
sir,
can
for
I
the
add on something
informative
here?
session.
Please, Nidhi ma'am. Jino sir, 1 second.
Yes, sir. Sir, it
Ah,
is somewhere it is said that if we read 1,000 books, words in our pen are flowed like water. They flow like water. Somewhere I read this quote. So I guess the reading which we do that may help in writing also in academics. I guess the pre-preparation before writing the paper is very important. I guess so.
No, don't guess. It is a fact. It is a fact. The
Yes.
more I read, the more ideas that I get, I can develop my idea better. Yes, Nidhi ma'am, I completely agree with you. I endorse your statement. Yes, that is why I said preparation, reference, study, research. The more I do that, I get, my pen will never stop. It will definitely go. There's an
Good
easy.
evening, sir.
Yes, madam.
Thanks for your speech, sir. It is very much interesting and it never gets bored in this time too. And my doubt is whether it is must to include a literature review in the research articles, sir?
Yes, at least there should be one paragraph of literature review. The reason is very simple. As I have mentioned earlier, you have to find some research gaps in the area of your study. And you should be able to mention, it's a kind of justifying your article. No, this will help you when you are writing your thesis in particular. So what I feel, the research article should be a prelude to the chapters that you write. In the same way, I expect every researcher to practice. There is no hard and fast rule, Pavitra ma'am. There is no hard and fast rule that it should be there. But as a reviewer, I have seen people using it very effectively to convince the editor and the reviewer. That will help you to get your article published easily. You will stand a better chance with this literature review and theoretical framework.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening, ma'am. Please.
I'm very grateful to attend your session, sir. And my question is, you have segregated an article writing, some of a section, how to write in sections. So is there anything there for writing a chapter apart from introduction and conclusion? Is there any sectionalization, or is there we have to section anything in writing a chapter, sir? Like, is there anything like that for writing a chapter?
Yeah, but there is not much difference between writing an article and writing a chapter. In fact, you have made it very clear. You are very clear about introduction and conclusion. You have left out those two things. Let us say I am writing chapter 3. Chapter 3. My chapter 1 is introduction. Chapter 2 is about some other thing. Chapter 3, every chapter I would like to have a meaningful title. Meaningful title. Especially when you are writing a thesis chapter, For example, you have taken novels of Shashi Deshpande. And you're using feminist theory there. Okay. So I would like to give a most suitable title, heading to my chapter, first thing. Second thing, I will justify my heading or the title in the beginning. Not only that, I would like to connect the chapter 1 to chapter 2 to chapter 3 before I begin. That is, there will be a smooth transition from one chapter to another chapter. So that is what I expect, researchers to do. Then with a lot of subheadings, for example, my chapter is 3.1. I'll just try to establish my idea, how to get a transition from chapter 2 to 3. 3.2, I'll begin with small, I'll have a subheading, under that I will write. 3.3, I have one more subheading, and 3.1, I have another small subheading. Like this, and again I'll come to 3.7 or 3.8 where it's a kind of a conclusion to that chapter. Again, remember that I will also give some hint about next chapter there, and this is how we develop our chapters.
Okay, sir. Whether we should give a literature review in the introduction, or also we can use in the chapters also.
I would never suggest to use it in the chapters. I would like to bring it in the introduction only. Anyhow, we are bringing lot of references, citations,
Yes,
quotes in the chapters. I think that would be enough more, because otherwise it will become redundant.
Okay,
we should
sir.
avoid that as much as possible. Sometimes I'm not saying that you should completely do away with that, but better to avoid it as much as possible.
Okay.
Thank you, sir, for
Thank
very
you.
informative session. Dear participants, we are winding up today's workshop. I request all the participants to join 5:50 p.m. tomorrow.
One second, Gino. Thank you,
Yes, sir.
participants, for listening me even at this last minute, and thank you for the interaction. Thank you.
Sir, good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes, madam.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
I need some help from you because I need your mail ID, sir, because as a beginner of the researchers, I need your email. So we need many suggestions from you, sir.
Sure, ma'am. My email is very simple, ma. SVN,
SVN. Small letters, sir, all?
all small, ma.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, sir.
MURTHY. SVN MURTHY 45
45
at the rate of gmail.com.
Okay. SVN Murthy 45 at the rate of gmail.com.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I'm a
Thank
bit,
you so much.
no, Lata
Thank
madam,
you.
please, I'm a bit lazy in answering.
No, you are
I may
very
have to
good in answering, sir. No. Okay.
And I would
Thank
like
you.
myself, Jenny Thomas from Kerala. I would like to
Yes, madam.
thank you for sharing news in a simple and understanding way. Your session was very informative, inspirational, and useful for us. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for your kind words, Ginny ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. I think I'll take leave.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the focused explanation, sir.
Any other? I can see some queue, some hands raised. Feel free. I'm free only. It's a kind of discussion that I expect, not question and answer. If there are no discussions, and yeah, instead of raising hands, you can start asking questions.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening, ma'am.
Sir, good evening, sir. So, how to make ELT paper quite interesting, sir?
Ma'am, whether it is ELT paper or literature paper,
Okay.
first thing, give a proper introduction. And in ELT, your methodology becomes very significant. And you need to do a lot of survey, and you have to do a lot of field work with ELT, and you need more factual information to support your argument. And whatever that you include, for example, a questionnaire. That questionnaire should be relevant to the topic that you are. For example, you are making a study of, developing listening skill in Salem district. You should prepare a proper questionnaire, and you should consult with at least some 10 to 15 people in the ELT field, talk to them, discuss with them, give their question paper, do a kind of a pilot survey before you start diagnosing, giving that test. That would help. That would help you.